CJ Davis.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It has been 4 busy months in the city of Memphis. It has been a busy time, but it has been a time of reinvention and opportunity here in the Memphis Police Department. What I have found is despite the challenges that we face here in the city of Memphis, Memphis is a beautiful city, a vibrant city, a city of proud residents who are proud of their history and optimistic about the future. I too am very optimistic about the future here in the city of Memphis and the commitment that the Memphis Police Department has to make our communities safer. So I will jump right in and begin answering some of your questions. There have been many questions over the last several weeks, and this was a way for me to consolidate all of your questions and respond in a way that we could all be satisfied with it. So I'm going to start with ABC 24, Jenny DePrizio. And Jenny's question is, how long do you think it will take to see a measurable reduction in crime? And what will it take for that to happen? So crime reductions come about when not only the police department and police agencies bring all our resources to bear to address crime trends, but we also see greater results when crime prevention measures are enacted by community members and other stakeholders. So as I've said before, and in many community forums, we hope to engage not just our police officers in crime prevention, but also our community members, our business stakeholders, and other agencies that partner with us. Our success depends heavily on several factors as well. As it relates to gun crimes, which is a pervasive issue in the city of Memphis, the Memphis Police Department has seized more than 3,000 illegal guns this year and made over 3,000 arrests of juveniles and adults in possession of illegal guns. We have taken at least 3,800 stolen weapons reports, and approximately 55% of guns stolen come from unsecured weapons and motor vehicles. And because gun crimes and violent crime is at the very highest priority of the Memphis Police Department, we know that our work is cut out for us as we try to inform our community members about how to be responsible gun owners. So we are increasing our education and awareness campaigns to encourage responsible gun ownership. And this effort is messaging must be taken seriously. Individuals who have legal guns have to secure their weapons, not just in their vehicles, but also in their homes. Some of the incidents that have occurred as it relates to our children have not been related to thefts or gun violence because of gangs, but many of them have just been accidental shootings. So much of our work has to be approached from a holistic approach and to ensure that we're not just arresting individuals, but we're also educating individuals in our community to prevent crime. And what we do know is that our children have more access to weapons now, as we've seen in the recent school shooting. And the source in many of these instances are weapons unsecured in homes and vehicles. So as we have entered into this new era also of permitless carry, we are encountering more instances where weapons are readily available, where people are just carrying weapons on their persons in the simplest of conflicts. And the use of firearms has increased even in domestic violence cases. Instead of arguments being simple arguments, they're turning into shootouts. And in disputes such as road rage and other disputes amongst acquaintances. So responsible gun ownership is a major factor in keeping our community safe. And the last thing I'll add to that is that we are planning to be proactive in how we address gun issues and violent crime. We have a gun buyback event scheduled for November 13th, and we'll continue to work in the communities that are most impacted to curb gun violence from a holistic approach. But from an enforcement and interdiction standpoint, we have several planned operations in partnership with our federal, state, and local partners to specifically focus on individuals involved in violent crime. And we believe that if we stay laser focused on those individuals that are what I call serial criminals, not just repeat offenders, but serial criminals, then we can see some impact. And we also have to work with our criminal justice system so that we're not just putting the most egregious individuals in jail, but they stay in jail as well. So we'll be working with our DA's office to try to ensure that we build good cases against some of the most violent offenders. And while challenged in our current staffing levels, I'm optimistic that we can strive next year for a 5% decrease in Part 1 crime. That is a goal that we plan to set for 2022, but we've already started working on how we move the needle in reducing crime in our city. So that was question number 1. And Mr. Prezio, did you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I've been a reporter here for 20 years and I've seen many attempts and nothing really has changed over the years, right? I mean, it kind of goes up, it kind of goes down. So that's why my question, what's it really going to take? Like, I've heard so many versions of, we're going to do more community policing. No, we're going to not do as much community policing. We're going to do more gun buyback programs. So like, what's it going to take to finally make a real change? Because as a reporter who sat here for 20 years watching the crime problem, nothing's really changed. So that's why my question is, what really can happen to move the needle?
Well, I think your frustration is a frustration experience, even as a new person in this city, is very frustrating to me as well. I do believe that it's going to take, and I said a holistic approach, and I didn't just mean from community policing and all the things that we can do as a police department. That holistic approach has to be the criminal justice system as well. And I think people think that we fail them when we have to address the same individuals over and over and over again. And it goes back to us, some of the statements that I've made in the past, that 20% of the people are committing 80% of the crime. And if we can work with our criminal justice partners and have some stiffer penalties for some of the most egregious crimes, when a person commits a crime against another person that's a violent act, that person should be dealt with swiftly and with appropriate consequences. So it's going to take more than just the police department arresting individuals. It's going to take the system to work from every aspect, and to also give individuals an opportunity who come back into the community some other alternatives, as opposed to trying to make a life out of crime again. So I think the wraparound services that we talk about, they have to work, and not just work for a couple of months, but they have to be consistent to help individuals who return to the community to have some type of productive life and are able to walk away from criminal activity. So I hear your frustration, and thank you for that. And so the next question is, what do I plan to do that is different from my predecessors to reduce crime in the city? Very similar question, and I think I've hit on some of it. Some of it may be the same work that has been done by previous chiefs, but every chief has a different approach to addressing crime and community concerns. We all have different backgrounds and different experiences of those programs and initiatives that have worked. And I'd like to think that some of what I'm bringing to the table is new, fresh, creative, and it engages not just my officers in a different way, but also community members. Building trust is going to be important, and not just as a cliche, but to actually work with our community members and establish relationships where they feel comfortable, talking to police officers and providing information about what's happening in their community. My approach is one that is extremely collaborative. It brings, all the resources to bear, including utilizing even some of our retired officers, which is an approach that I think will help free up some of our officers to do more of the crime fighting and responding to calls and some of the other lightweight work that our police department is still responsible for doing, like community engagement and community policing, can be handed off to a force of other individuals who have experience and knowledge and who can help build those relationships. So I plan to utilize our retired officers and reserves to help augment our work as a force multiplier in the community. Previous leaders in the Memphis Police Department did an incredible job utilizing the resources that they had. And today we're fortunate to receive federal funds to implement new and innovative initiatives that we are certain will help us to reduce crime. This is sort of a pivotal time in the Memphis Police Department that I don't know that we've ever had the amount of resources that we're receiving right now. We hope to make good of this opportunity and implement programs that have sustainable differences, sustainable changes. And so Andrew Douglas, WMCTV, in your first few months on the job as Memphis Police Chief, what changes have you implemented that have had a direct effect on reducing violent crime in Memphis? So we're still in the embryonic stages of addressing needed changes. We have worked quickly, though, on some initial initiatives. We recently stood up an auto theft task force to assist in reducing auto theft, since many of our crimes are being committed by individuals who have stolen a vehicle and committed the crime in that vehicle. This is a problem that we're finding to be quite prevalent in the city. So the Auto Theft Task Force will be specifically working to reduce auto thefts and also tracking individuals who are committing crimes in stolen vehicles. We are in the planning stages to also stand up our felony assault unit, which was funded just a month or so ago, to quickly respond to and investigate non-fatal shootings. This is important because as aggravated assaults and shootings increase, we put a lot of emphasis on homicides, but we need just as much emphasis on non-fatal shootings, because after all, an aggravated assault persons involved in these types of non-fatal shootings are likely to be your next murderer. They're likely to be the next suspect in some drive-by shooting or some homicide. So this is a proactive way to prevent the next fatal shooting. So we plan to stand that unit up probably within the next month. We also have a new format for our weekly information sharing sessions with our violence interrupter, which is GVIP. You probably heard a lot about the violence interrupter, supporting them in the work that they do. Even though we don't work alongside them in the community, we provide real-time information to this program to help guide their interventions. The whole idea and the concept is that if they receive information real-time about an incident, they can help prevent other consequences or other fatalities or even shootings that could be a result of the initial incident. So we are working with GVIP as well. We've implemented a test pilot to eliminate our Delta shift. Our Delta shift is one of the 4 shifts that we have where officers are assigned to what we call a watch. If we eliminate the Delta shift, that takes those officers and it adds them to put them in areas and times of day and night that we need them the most. So it sort of supplements the 2 other shifts that work nights and evenings so that there are more officers on the street responding to calls for service, conducting directed patrols, discretionary types of activities that are important to us reducing crime and placing visibility where we need it. So eliminating the Delta shift right now is currently in 2 precincts. And if this pilot works well for us, then we plan to implement this same type of scheduling throughout the department as a way to maximize our manpower. We also have modified our CompStat process, and CompStat, you might be familiar with that terminology, is our weekly crime fighting forum where all our leaders in the Memphis Police Department come together. It's known as TRAC, Blue Crush, to sort of facilitate a more robust data and intelligence analysis, develop strategies that address crime real time. This is more of a problem-oriented policing approach, a more results-driven approach, and crime-fighting tactics that centers on actions and accountability. So we've also begun looking at our camera installations and expanding our camera network. That intelligence information and the utilization of video footage when crimes are being committed will help us to solve crimes and arrest individuals as well. So we're looking at expanding not just the cameras that the city owns, but also expanding our camera network into private sector cameras, exterior cameras on businesses as well, and also license plate readers to identify stolen vehicles. So I hope that sort of hits some of the initial work that has been going on in the Memphis Police Department. So violent crime amongst juveniles is at a record high. Recently, Shelby County Schools announced they are bringing on former MPD Chief Tony Armstrong to make Shelby County schools safer. How are we confronting violence involving juveniles in Memphis, and how are we working with the school system to reach at-risk juveniles? So I'm always personally committed to finding solutions for at-risk youth. We'll continue to work closely with the schools to help educate our youth about anti-violence and gang activity. We have the DARE program, which is drug abuse resistance, and also our GREAT program. We will continue to educate in the school systems. I met with Superintendent Ray to discuss school safety and fully support any work that retired Director Armstrong, who's a personal friend, and the Shelby County Schools Public Safety Director is involved in. And as you know, the Shelby County Sheriff's Department has an intimate relationship with the school system because they have SROs there. So we will continue to work with the school system and the Sheriff's Department and trying to make our schools safe. So Adrian Sands, are we with Memphis CIT? How are we with the Memphis CIT program, and what do I think about it? Well, I'm a supporter of CIT. It's a hallmark of the Memphis Police Department. I had that program in my previous work. It's a program that is very beneficial for officers. And in the previous department, I actually incorporated CIT in the basic training program for all officers as they came on the police department. And we're looking at potentially implementing CIT training at some point here in the Memphis Police Department as part of basic training as well. So I have a question here also about the fact that we want a Hispanic liaison here in the Memphis Police Department and how we communicate with the Hispanic community. And what's the status on that process? Yes, I did mention early on that I thought we needed a full-time Hispanic liaison. We're in the process of interviewing individuals that are interested. It does require a person that is fluent in Spanish and preferably someone from the Hispanic community, and this will be a full-time job for that person. Many times our Hispanic community members are targeted because of their language barriers, and we plan to work really, really closely with our Hispanic community through our new Hispanic liaison, and that should happen within the next month. So Fox 13, how would violence interrupters reduce crime in Memphis? I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Violence interrupters are individuals working as community stakeholders, and they're uniquely familiar with the various communities that they serve in those neighborhoods, and they seek to quickly intervene during the onset of potential community violence and use their mediation skills to prevent further violence. So we're really looking forward to seeing the results of violence interrupters. And the other question was, how do we choose people? That program is not under the umbrella of the Memphis Police Department. It is a separate entity, and the group has a city-appointed director who leads the program and selects those individuals. So what are my thoughts on Superintendent Ray's recent announcement that the district is re-exploring the possibility of replacing commissioned officers with its own school peace force? And as I mentioned before, the MPD, we don't have a contract with the school system. However, as we continue conversations with the superintendent, we are certainly supportive of any type of new initiatives that could help support, safety, public safety in our schools. Oftentimes, things that happen in the neighborhood spill over to the classrooms and school hallways. This is another question. What steps is MPD taking, or does it plan to take in the future to better inform principals, teachers, and other school staff members about neighborhood crime developments? So while we strive to ensure timely and relevant information is provided to our schools, to all of our local schools, regarding potential threats or safety to our children, we will nevertheless evaluate our communications protocols. I'm new here, and I'm hoping to make sure that we have communications protocols that help intercept any potential violence in the schools. And that would be, planning and having discussions with the public safety director in the school system, along with Director Ray or Superintendent Ray, and also our sheriff, so that anytime there's a potential threat, we communicate to our officials in a timely fashion to prevent any type of crisis. So commercial appeal, any significant departmental policy changes under my leadership so far. We're still in the early stages of evaluating MPD's policies. At some point, we will be evaluating, and of course, as a best practice, we're always evaluating our policies. However, as a nationally accredited organization, we follow industry best practice, and we have to, in order to maintain that accreditation. There have been modifications to the hiring guidelines, I know, trying to streamline it because we're short of officers, and streamlining the hiring process, not compromising the hiring process, but streamlining it and eliminating sort of dated requirements has been beneficial for us. There will likely be additional policy additions and modifications in the coming months related to new community engagement programs. Mentioned the Hispanic liaison, LGBTQ liaison, and utilization of our retirees and crime suppression efforts. I'm sorry. I'm trying to hurry up so that I'm good of time here and get to everybody's questions. Specific traffic enforcement under Slowdown Tennessee, a robust increase on the interstate, and more traffic enforcement of speeding, drag racing, and counterfeit tags on city streets is one of our priorities as well. It's my goal to eventually stand up a permanent interstate traffic presence in Memphis, which is critically needed. So MLK 50, Jacob Steimer. Are we trying to shift more resources to addressing root causes of crime prevention? I sort of mentioned that in the holistic conversation. And if so, how specifically are we doing that? So partnering with our interim U.S. Attorney General, Joe Murphy, as is a start with his Better Communities initiative. And we plan to expand our community outreach program to take a more proactive and preventative approach to youth violence as well, utilizing all kinds of community proactive programs for our young people. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Brownlee.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a pause for the moment. We're going to send a new link out so you can jump back on so we can finish this conversation, our Q&A with Chief Davis.